And we'll also talk about egress monitoring, this idea that you should be watching your network boundaries for stuff, whatever it might be, leaving the network. Monitoring outbound network traffic for indicators of compromise is egress monitoring. A lot of companies spend a lot of money and a lot of time looking for inbound connections or ingress connections, but very few of them actually look at outbound connections. Why is that? A lot of people assume that if you are on my network, if you are here in the office, you're good to go. Go ahead and make whatever connection you want out. But the issue comes down to when you have phishing emails, when you have remote access malware dialing in, if you don't catch it on the way in, you're kind of hosed. The only way you're going to catch it after that is looking for those outbound connections. And if you're not doing that, then you're going to completely miss a whole set of attack indicators that you could be looking for. So how do you actually do this? Well, look for outgoing sessions. Not only established connections, but actually failed attempts. Your firewall may be blocking these sorts of things. Look at the logs and see what is beaconing out, what is calling out. I will always see 80, port 80, port 443, port 53. But what if I start seeing port 23 calling out on a regular basis? What does that mean? Well, either I have some user who really uses Telnet still, or I've got a piece of malware that's calling out over a or trying to use Telnet to call out, or just using it as a theoretically an open port. Hopefully all that stuff is blocked at the firewall, but look at your firewall logs and see what are my hosts on the inside of my network trying to communicate with? Who are they trying to communicate with? And based on that, start correlating those outbound connections with known bad IP addresses, reputation lists, and look for bad IP addresses, command and control addresses, and you'll be able to either block those at your proxy, block them at your firewall. But you can't do any of that unless you're actually looking at that data outbound from your network. Some additional techniques: make sure you have proper visibility into egress traffic. You can do this through your DNS logs, your router logs, your firewall logs. You can look at intrusion detection and set that up to monitor outbound traffic as well. You can look for your proxies. If you find that there's an inordinate amount of data in these various logs, maybe you want to look at a whitelisting approach. Because what this will do is it will allow you to filter all that noise out and say, okay, I'm only going to allow certain things outbound and block the rest. So now my logs are going to be centered around what I'm actually allowing as opposed to anything else. If you have the ability to do any type of threat intelligence or reputation information on IP addresses, look into that. Automate that process where all your proxy logs once an hour, once a day, go through some type of reputation check to see who's calling out to various websites and are they malicious IP addresses. And if you can do that, then you start looking at, all right, well, who is calling out from the inside of the network? Now do I need to go remediate that particular host? The one gotcha to this is a lot of organizations use NATing, network address translation. And what it causes is if you're looking at egress monitoring from the firewall out, that network address translation has already been done, most likely. And so what you're seeing is the IP address of the NAT server, not the internal server. Now, there are ways of correlating, a connection that has already been NATed and back to its original host on the internal side. But just recognize that that might be something that you need to do.